Hello and welcome to All Villa, No Filler, a podcast all about Aston Villa, the world's greatest football team. I promise I'm telling the truth when I say that. As ever, please remember to subscribe to the show, follow us on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Now, it's not much fun being an Aston Villa fan right now, is it? Especially after Unai Emery's side could only get a 1-1 draw with 10-man Sunderland at the weekend. I'm joined today by regular guest and London line Paul Webb to look at where things stand with Villa and to chat a bit about the Sunderland game. So, Webber, obviously it's great to have you here for the live stream, your first live stream. You've been, as I said, a regular guest of ours for a while now. But with regards to the Sunderland draw, we might as well start there. What did you make of it?
It sort of typifies the season, doesn't it, Frankie? It was slow, lethargic, just uninspiring, to be quite honest. You simply put, it's 2 points dropped. They're a team that we should be finishing far higher than. So you have to look at getting points against those teams throughout the season. And when you're gifted an opportunity, what was it, half an hour in, where their player just lost his head and got riled by Cash, and you're up against 10 men, you've got to win those games. And in truth, especially then when you get ahead, which you could argue was against the run of play when we actually scored the goal, they worryingly were on top in the second half, and they came out and were bombing us in with long throws and corners, and they hit the bar and stuff. But we certainly didn't, again, take control of the game. We didn't enforce ourselves onto the game. And even when we went 1-0 up, we then didn't kill out the game. And I know we haven't been in that position before this season. But yeah, just typifies the season, Frankie. Another difficult one to get too excited about. 3 points this season, and that feels like a game that you just have to win.
It really did, didn't it? You know, obviously the results this season haven't been great so far. What do you think's going wrong at the moment?
I don't know. It's a really, really bizarre one. The very, very different to anything I can remember of it. I mean, that it's not gone toxic or anything like that. I think everyone's just a bit confused. It's like we had two fantastic seasons, really, the last two seasons, where it's everything that has been written about Aston Villa has been positive. If you look back over the last two seasons, the only genuine negative thing has been around ticket pricing and maybe the way that they've been treating fans with certain things, which has got nothing to do with Unai Emery or anything on the field. So we had no negativity in the main for 2 seasons. There's been the odd game that sticks out. You've got the Palace in the Cup, you've got Man United last game of the season, but in the main we've been on a upward trajectory, and then all of a sudden it's just stalled. And that's probably the easiest question to ask is what's going on, and the hardest one to answer, because we've still got the same players. But I wonder if those players got used to a higher caliber of player, maybe when you had the Rashfords and the Asensios and they're looking around as each individual and they're not seeing the quality that was there before. We perhaps lack that leadership when it comes to who on the field is going to drag us from being abject in a certain game to take us up a level. And I love McGinn as a leader, vocal leader. But when there's a battle as such, he can inspire. But he's not a world-class player by any stretch of the imagination. We all of a sudden had that in our squad last season. So we had Rashford at times, we had Asensio at times. And that must have just inspired the squad. And it just looks like the squad looks a little lost. And like maybe they believe that they should be in the Champions League and this season's below them. I just don't know where you put the blame, but at the minute there's not one of those players can be proud really of what they've done so far in the first 5 games. Unai can't be proud of the teams he's selecting and the constant changing. He doesn't know his starting 11. He doesn't know his best 11. And I know football's developed away from that it's not just it is starting 11. We have finishers now if we listen to Mikel Arteta, which I'm glad I don't have to very often. But I struggle to see Bogart's done all right. That's probably literally the only positive I can take on this whole season. And it's just, but I don't know where that spark's going to come from. We just need to buy a win somehow. I see a lot of players there who aren't genuinely putting in the right amount of effort, the right shift. I don't see people dying for the shirt. That's just lack of creativity. I see a team that's sort of going through the motion as if we were guaranteed to finish between 8th and 12th and there's 4 or 5 games left in the season. It's got that very end of season feel to the way that we're playing, and yet the season's not even begun yet. So it is worrying. I'm not absolute panic stations yet, but I struggle to see any genuine positives in the 5-6 games of football that we've played.
I'm with you. I'm not really at panic stations at all, but looking at the upcoming fixtures, these look like the ones to me that are. I mean, if we're not picking up wins in these games, well, then something is wrong.
Well, this is the point, Frankie, because you look at these fixtures, and it's the ones after that worry me more.
Yeah.
Because if you don't get the points here, you then go into, I think, Liverpool, Man City, or Man City, Liverpool, whichever the way it is. So if you don't pick up points against Fulham, Burnley, and Spurs, you're out of the European race by October, because you're not going to go get 6 points. I know Man City are the team they used to be, that are still very, very strong. And Liverpool at the minute are a cut above the rest, whether they're getting lucky wins or not, whatever you want to put it down to. You'd be a very brave person to predict 6 points from those 2 fixtures. So we could find ourselves 12, 13 points adrift by the middle of October. And that's a huge, huge gap, where at that point confidence will be low and everything like that. So you hit the nail on the head. This run of fixtures in October will shape our season one way or another.
Absolutely. It's going to be Bologna at home Thursday, Fulham at home at the weekend, then Feyenoord away, then Burnley at home. If we're not Fulham and Burnley at home, these present chances for sure 3 points in those 2 games. But whether we get them or not is another question, because, given how tepid we've looked in games, are you worried about it?
Yeah, so fully agreed. That has to be 6 points, those 2 home games in the league. If we want to progress and get into that top tier of the Europa League, where we avoid the playoff, you've also got to get, in our first 3 fixtures, you've got to get 7 points. So you can't really afford to lose one. I am worried because we sat down and discussed where do we think we're going to finish next season. And we both were perhaps overconfident that felt that we could get top 5 and top 6. But the squad hasn't changed now for a while. I think I saw the picture that went around on the socials as the fact that there was a 16 Smith signings, a Gerrard signing, etc. So we've had this team for a long time, and the likes of Mings, McGinn are maybe reaching their peaks of their power and aren't going to get much better. They may stay at this level for another 2 seasons, but it's not. We're the oldest team in the league. There isn't, next season doesn't straight away strike me as, it's not one of those teams that just need to bed themselves in this season. And sometimes you get a transitional period where you've got lots of young players. You think, okay, I don't mind them growing into themselves this season, because that will mean next season should be exciting. We don't have that. This team is close to the fire. This team should be disbanding at the end of this season. The likes of Luca Digne, Mings, Cash, all should be nowhere near the starting 11 next season. We should have progressed beyond those players. Same with McGinn. As good as servants as these all are, we have to progress as a football club. And there's a lot of players that we will need to replace in that starting 11 if we are genuinely going to be in this European mix for seasons to come. So I am worried that this team is now looking quite a long way away from being a top tier team for seasons to come. Yeah,
and 2 of the players who probably sum it up the most this season so far are Morgan Rogers and Ollie Watkins. Watkins with no goals yet, missed a big chance against Sunderland to win it. Rogers, just everything seems to be going wrong for him right now. What's happened to them, do you think?
So I don't know. I cling. Ollie Watkins, if we deal with them separately, Ollie Watkins has bad runs of form. He's and I think we've talked about, he's a purple patch sort of striker that can blow hot and cold, and he just goes on one, and he'll be on 10 goals this season by Christmas, and it'll look fine. So this isn't anything new for Watkins, but he normally, when he's going through those bad runs, it's because he's missing chances. And I actually think this one against Sunderland was arguably the first chance he's genuinely missed this season. I don't remember many chances he's had. And it was a really bizarre miss to completely miss the header. It was odd, wasn't it? It was a strange one. So I've sort of seen Watkins have bad runs before, so I'm confident he can get out of it. Rodgers, I'm more worried about than I am Watkins, simply because he's a player who seems to be believing his own hype now. He's just won, and rightly so, I think one Young Player of the Year was not a undeserved reward for his performances last season. You know, getting hat-tricks in the Champions League, performing pretty consistently. I think he tailed off last season. I don't think he's just to blame. I think he's been managed at times quite poorly. He doesn't always get into games, but Unai has very, very rarely taken him off or given him a rest. So I don't think he's been utilised well. So it'd be harsh to say he's tired because it's so early in the season, but it looks like there's an overemphasis on him. And if I am to be a little bit sympathetic towards him, if it's the right term, he does keep getting moved around in that top four. And it goes back to the point I made earlier, Frankie, is that Unai doesn't know his starting 11. And in truth, he doesn't know his top four. He sort of settled on his back four now. And it's probably not good enough back four, but that is our back four. Well, I think he wants to play Tielemans and Kamara in that holding role, maybe Onana if they were ever fit all together. But it's that front four that he doesn't know. And I know we've only just got Elliott and Sancho in, but Rodgers sometimes plays next to Watkins, sometimes plays out wide. And it looks like a player that just doesn't quite know where he's meant to be all the time, or doesn't have the confidence he's going to be able to really unsettle a specific defender for the whole game because he knows he's going to move. So I think he has been poorly managed at times, but it just, I don't know, it just looks like a player who believes he should be onto better things by now. And this is a learning curve for him in that he's got to now really go back to that hard graft, which got him up to this level. Nobody thought he'd get to this level when we signed him from Middlesbrough. So he's clearly a hard-working individual and seems like a decent chap, but he's just in a bad run. And when somebody's in a bad run, I like to see what their attitude's like. And I'm not 100% loving what I'm seeing at the moment from Rodgers. Whereas with Watkins, I want to see him now run into the channels more and be that hungry Watkins that we used to love. And I just don't see that hunger from them, either of them. And I think that's probably across the whole team. It's lacking hunger at the minute. And Rodgers probably now needs to step up more than anybody and become our Rashford, become our Asensio of the new team.
And show why, if he got Young Player of the Season last year, but show why he should be a starting member or picked for the World Cup squad next year. I mean, all these players, particularly the England ones, have to look for that tournament next year. I think their form has to pick up for it. Now, with Emery, obviously, there's a lot of question marks over some of the decisions he's been making recently. What are your thoughts on Unai at the moment?
So he's got loads of credit in the bank. So I'm not... anybody who's saying Unai out right now, for me, is still clueless. That's far beyond where we are as a club, because the flip side is beat Bologna. We've just discussed 2 winnable home games. You could be sitting on 9 points in a few weeks' time. If you beat Bologna at home, beat Feyenoord away, it's probably our 2 toughest games in that tournament. We've got Fenerbahce in January, in which case it could be all done by then anyway. So all of a sudden, we're not a million miles away from turning it around. And I don't mean that by on-field performances. I just mean by the sheer number of games we're about to go into. You can get a streaky run going and it can all be rosy again. And everybody will soon remember this man took us to the Champions League. This man's taken us to an FA Cup semi-final, Conference League semi-final. So we've been knocking on the door at the right end of tournaments under Unai Emery consistently for 2 years. So that, for me, is still fond in the memory and has credit in the bank. But I don't like him coming out and criticising the players openly, mainly because that's not something I've seen him do beforehand. So you can tell there's a level of frustration there that we haven't seen at Villa before. And we've talked about certain players seem to get a complete free pass with him, that they're going to start all the time. And that isn't acceptable either, because that just breeds the wrong sort of mentality. So I said it at the very top of the call, everybody has underperformed so far this season. And Unai Emery is within that camp. So the treatment, if you just look at one player, which I sort of sums up where Emery isn't quite right, is Emi Buendia. I think it was at the Brentford game we were together at when he came on as a sub and then got took off as a sub, and he was still being creative. He just hasn't ever given Emi Buendia faith that he's a starting player. So if I'm Emi Buendia out on loan multiple times, like, why would I ever believe I'm the future of Aston Villa? When every transfer window you're trying to bring somebody in to replace me, you bring me on as a sub, take me off as a sub, and he's just, maybe his style isn't to put the arm round players and show them that love. He's quite clearly maybe that strict, hard head teacher sort of role. Maybe he needs to adapt slightly. Maybe they do need a bit of an arm round and have a bit of love. I just at the minute, when there's so many things that you can point out as being wrong, the buck does stop with the manager, right? That he has to change it. So I haven't seen anything at the games I've been to that would indicate any toxic vibes towards Unai in any way, shape or form. There's murmurings of certain players that should be coming on and off. It's not got toxic yet or anything like that. I was there at Brentford at the Cup game. The atmosphere was fantastic there in the away end. So I'm not sensing the fan base has gone beyond, gone towards Unai as Unai out or anything daft like that. But it will turn quite quickly as if we keep losing. The results, ultimately, we need to get results. We need to get confidence from somewhere, and the buck stops with him. So, yeah.
I can see some comments are coming in, and we'll get to those in a second. And please do please do subscribe, of course. Please share this around so more people become aware. Starting lineup wise, recently there's been, I've not been overly enamoured with seeing Buendia start 2 games in a row alongside Rodgers. I think the two of them keep losing the ball all the time, and I partly theorise some of the issues we're having is that we sort of look quite solid enough at the back, even though I know we are XG against isn't brilliant. But going forward, it feels like whenever we try and link up between the back line and then up into the Watkins area, the Buendia and Rodgers, the ball just bounces off them all the bloody time. So that just makes it a lot harder for anything to sort of build from the back. Who would you like to see in the starting lineup for Fulham? So, I mean, Bologna, it could be a bit of a mixed bag. Maybe some youth being there, we'll see. But for Fulham specifically this weekend, one that it feels like we have to get 3 points to the Premier League now, really. Who would you like to see in there?
For me, it's the midfield. I don't know when Tielemans, I don't know if they've confirmed when Tielemans is going to be back. But that, and I think when you look back to Newcastle, I think that's where we got it wrong with he was too far forward. Because he had Onana and Kamara in that holding role, and Tielemans is the man for me who should be next to Kamara if everybody's fit, because then he sees so much of the ball, and he's the player that fires that little pass to players making the runs. I mean, I think it was Ramsey who scored a fantastic goal away at Walsall, or against Roma. At Walsall in pre-season with a lovely ball from Tielemans. And Tielemans is that key to unlock how we transition when we are passing the ball slowly across the back. So Tielemans is the key to the way we play. We don't have another midfielder who can sit next to Kamara and find those passes. So I don't know if they've said, Frankie, how long he's out for, but he is a real miss. In terms of the key areas, I want Harvey Elliott to start. He's tenacious. He's drops deep to get the ball. So, and I noticed that in the cup game at Brentford that he actually drops a lot deeper than I thought he did. So he can then become that interlink a little bit better between that midfield. So I think we need to unleash Elliott and just start building around him up top. So Watkins, obviously, is a lack of competition. Marlon, for me, seems to improve within the fans' minds when we don't see him, because now I've seen him quite a bit this season and sort of understand why maybe he wasn't getting in the team too often. But for me, Elliott has to start. And then, so you've got to find a way to get Elliott, Rodgers, Watkins on the pitch. And then it's that whatever. At the minute, for me, he's trying to force McGinn into the team. love John McGinn, love what he's done with the club, but I don't think he features in our starting 11 at the moment in time, especially if everybody's fit. I would have Kamara, Tielemans, and then I'd like to see Rodgers, Elliott, and then who do you play? I guess you've got to give Sancho a try. We're not seeing too much of him lately, but we've signed him. I know he's on loan, but he's on big money. So that, for me, has to be the front four. I'd like to see Rodgers, Sancho, Elliott, and Watkins. But my worry there is I think that's too narrow. I don't see a lot of width. So I think we're going to struggle this season with width. But that would be my front four. And then for the next few games, I would just start Elliott all the time. If he's fit to go, let's start building around him, because I think he can bring a lot of quality to the team. And the quicker that everybody gets used to how he drops deep, how he wants the ball, how he sort of moves around in different areas, the sooner we can get used to his style of play, the better we will become. So who do I start against? Fulham was your question. 100% Elliott has to start.
Absolutely. I mean, it's very rare that I criticise Professor Unai. I mean, there's a reason I call him Professor Unai. But I just think the last couple of games, when I saw Buendia start against Everton, and I saw him start again against Sunderland, I thought I can sort of understand it against Everton, maybe, even though I thought he should have just thrown Elliott straight in. Sunderland away, I thought, I'm sorry, but like I get it with Unai, where he likes to look at plays, likes to work them out. He wants to know exactly what their best roles are. But Harvey Elliott has had a full pre-season. He's raring to go. He's already played this season for Liverpool. He's a winner proven at this level. I really don't see what it is we're waiting for. Just throw him in immediately. And
he won player at a tournament, I think, in the Euros under 21s in the summer. So he's ready to go.
Absolutely. And you just sort of think, well, what are we waiting for here? Like, just stick him in, because Buendia clearly, he's had 4 years to show what he's about. And I don't like to get on the back of Villa players, but just the objective reality is, what has he shown in 4 years that makes you think he's ever going to be the answer? And I don't think there's anything really. And so give Elliott a go. And I also think that one other area I'd have criticised, which again, extremely rare I would do this, is just against Sunderland, when I think I was like, I think Rodgers should, I think Elliott should be on sooner, but then at least he did come on, in 60th minute or so. Then you look at like Rodgers, and he was so poor again for so long, and it took until about the 82nd minute for Sancho to get on. And when Sancho came on, one thing that gave me positivity was that he was trying to make things happen, and his passing was more dynamic. He was making clever, direct passes, good ball into Watkins that should have been a goal. Link up with Maatsen was quite nice, and it sort of suggested what might be down that left hand side as the season progresses. In Unai's first season, it was down the left hand side with Ramsey, Moreno, and Mings, where things really took off. And if Sancho and Maatsen can build some kind of relationship down there, with maybe Mings as the anchor or Powers as sort of passing fulcrum with them, then maybe that left hand side is what rescues Villa again this year, like it did in the season we got to the Conference League. But it's I mean, whatever way you look at that front line, as you say, it feels narrow, and it feels like you can find an issue anywhere. Like, it's like Gesson needs time to adapt. Elliott needs time to adapt to that number 10 role, though I think he should start, because I think he's good enough. Watkins, he's patchy. Rodgers seems to be in and out of form. Buendia, we just don't know what it's about. Sancho is, again, a player who's going to need time to adapt. So it's very difficult to get that front line right. But I think Unai could help himself by just throwing his lot in with a Harvey Elliott, and being willing to make changes at an earlier rate in games, particularly when Rodgers is as poor as he is right now, and just throw Sancho on if it's not working.
Yeah, but that was the one thing I would say. It was quite noticeable, the ironic cheers that went up when Rodgers got taken off, which I think is more of a just, oh well, finally you are allowed to take him off sort of reaction in the away end on Sunday. So that was probably the only sign of a little bit of negativity creeping in, whether it's towards Unai, to Rodgers, just a general scenario of not winning a game when we were against 10 men. But yeah, I agree. I think you've got to get those guys in and make it work and force it into it. But Buendia, for me, is like 5th or 6th choice now across that front line. And if he plays a bit part in some of the Europa League games, that's absolutely fine. But he's not good enough to be in our starting 11 in the Premier League.
No, and again, it's very rare as well that I ever criticise players, and I think Unai So what he said about the players was, it was unusual. And normally when managers do that, I tend to think of like, Steven Gerrard at Villa, sort of insinuating it's the players, and John Gregory when he left Villa and he was at QPR, I think it was, or Derby. And at Derby, he sort of said, I'll have my own players next season. Again, it's when things aren't going right, passing the buck to players. But I do think looking at it this time out, when you see the goal we conceded against Sunderland, you see the number of black shirts that were around Granit Xhaka when he made the header for the assist. You do have to think like these players do have to buck up a little bit. Like there's only so much Unai can do when players like Rodgers are underperforming and players just aren't reacting in the way they did to Granit Xhaka. But with Villa, can we get out of this rut quickly?
Yeah, we can, and that's the bit I think. And I don't disagree with Unai's comment about there's a laziness, there's a lack of appetite, there's a cautiousness about the team this season that we haven't seen. So I look back maybe beginning of last season, and Villa were probably that almost fitting in. There's usually a second team that the media like to pretend, these are the entertaining team to watch. And we fitted that bill for a certain period of time under Unai, where the media were loving what we were doing. That the fans of any club were quite happy to watch Aston Villa on TV. Right now, it's the exact opposite. You do not want to watch Villa on TV. We are setting ourselves up to be far too negative, and I think they're aware that something isn't working. So I guess there's credit in that. If they know we're not firing on all cylinders, make ourselves hard to beat, it's not a bad attitude to have. But it's hard to watch. But we can turn it around. We've got a game Thursday. I look forward to driving to and from London to the game on Thursday. Can't wait for that. And you win that game against Bologna, which is a winnable game. And then all of a sudden you go into the game at the weekend. You could easily win 2 games in the space of no time at all. You get a couple of goals and everything, and then the narrative completely changes. Yeah. However, we're right on that cusp of the narrative is beginning to stay like, there's some problems at Villa. What's going on? But it's not full crisis mode yet. Because there's other teams that the media prefer to write about. We moan about it when Villa are doing really well, and they ignore Villa in the press at that point. But actually, when we're doing quite poorly, it's quite nice that the media don't take as big an interest in us, because Man United are still being Man United, and West Ham are in crisis, and these teams that the media prefer to write about. So we're still going slightly under the radar for how poor a start we've had. But that's only got one lifeline left. I think if we don't beat Fulham, or if we were to lose at home to Fulham, full crisis mode. The media are on it. Emery is the next manager that people are talking about who's going to leave. If you haven't beat Bologna as well, then every game becomes have to win from his perspective. And what I'm still really confident that we'll get a little run going. I don't know where the season's going to pan out right now. It's very hard to be too optimistic, but I am confident that we'll find a way to win on Thursday night. I think it'll be ugly. I think it'll be a terrible game of football to watch. Italian teams are incredibly well set out defensively. We'll scrape a win, an own goal in like the 78th minute, and then Bizot will save us over and over again in the 93rd, 94th, 95th minute, but we'll win. And then all of a sudden the team will remember that we can win football games. It's been a long, long time since they felt that way. And usually when you're in this bit of a rut, you don't just instantly start playing majestic football. You find a way to win, and then the confidence grows back from that. So I just hope that this Thursday there is quality in the squad, and unleash Elliott from the start, get him into that European nights at Villa Park, and we'll be okay, Frankie.
Yeah, I agree. I thought, look, compared to last season, we're actually conceding far fewer goals than we were at the start of last season, when it seemed every game we conceded immediately. That seems to be slightly better. I think it's just the link-up play, and I think that there were one or two occasions against Sunderland where I think, I remember when Elliott had the ball, Gesson was to his right, Cash was just behind him, Kamara around him, and the team was so static, and it feels like almost it's like one or two players need to take a few more chances and be a little bit more off the cuff
Yeah.
and willing to do something.
I think Ramsey was that player. I think we might be beginning to see. I know he's already out for a month, so he wasn't ever fit. But he was the one that would, certainly on that left-hand side where you talked about it earlier. I think Ramsey was a name to throw into that mix with when we were really strong on that left. The way he would cut in and break through the channels. That's something else we're missing this season. I look at Gessend and Marlon, and you are right; they're static in their position, and we need that somebody who's going to break through the lines coming in from deep. And I think, all roads seem to lead back to Harvey Elliott. Right, we're putting a lot on this lonely player from Liverpool, but he does drop deep. He can break through. So I think basically we're pinning all our hopes on Harvey Elliott. Is what we're, that's the only
pretty much. We're back to the Grealish years. No, I'm like, it's going to take time for these players to adapt, and I think that eventually, I think it will. I mean, these players are too good, and this manager's too good for it. Surely not to I mean, with Villa in relegation crisis in November, I'd be so shocked. We could never have seen that coming. But sometimes it does happen. Guardiola went through 2 months last year where things were bad. Jurgen Klopp, when his last season at Borussia Dortmund, they were bottom of the league in January. And obviously they worked their way back up to 7th from there. But again, sometimes it just does happen to teams that, it doesn't make a lot of sense as to why they are where they are. But I think with Villa, I'm calm about it all, really. And I think it will work itself out. It's just that it's kind of on the players and United to quickly work themselves out of this rut. And if they're feeling sorry for themselves, work through that and get on with it, because there's every chance we can go as far as we want in the Europa League and still finish at a decent level in the Premier League. We just got to kick on now, really.
I think you've actually hit the nail on the head there. I think they feel sorry for themselves. I think there's a sort of aura around the club that we're being shafted by PSR. We were shafted in the last game against Man United for an absolutely diabolical refereeing decision, and we should be in the Champions League. We should be this, and it's not fair. We shouldn't have to sell our players. We shouldn't have to sell Ramsey. We shouldn't have had to try and sell Martinez because the world's against us. And that's an okay narrative to have in the summer where there was nothing else going on. But that's gone now. This is the squad we had. The poor performances from the players on the pitch has got absolutely nothing to do with PSR. It's got nothing to do with that. The players, the management need to get over it. This is the squad they've got. There is still every single chance that squad is good enough to win a European trophy, to win the FA Cup, but they need to start acting like the summer's gone and they just need to focus in on it. And ultimately, that's Unai's job.
Absolutely. So I'll just get to a few of the comments. Fuzz the Duck says UTV. Good to see you, Fuzz the Duck. I think it's the first time I've seen you here. Duncan Kilburn. Regular on the channel. Good to see you again, Duncan. Emery seems to be in conflict with at least some of the squad at the start of the season. Something is really off. I mean, you could argue what the comments Tyrone Mings made online after the Jacob Ramsey sale, something about you don't know the half of it, did make it feel a little bit like something was not quite right behind the scenes. Do you think things are a little bit funny behind the scenes, maybe? Or
there's certainly a sign of it. I think we talked about beforehand where there wasn't any obvious signs that there was unrest at Villa because we didn't have an Isaac situation or other players going on strike or anything like that. So it felt like everything was harmonious, but the reaction to the Ramsey sale, people going out on social media, or players coming out and sort of defending Ramsey and stuff like that, it was the first signs of, yes, there is unrest there. I don't know if it's with Emery, it could just be generally with the whole club, like with the way that we're having to run ourselves. But they're 100% our signs, so there's not a happy camp. But like I said to you, that's been and gone now. That's the summer. Everybody should be on the right page by now, and they can't have that excuse anymore.
Yeah. Marine Boy, good to see you again, mate. Why do all the new signings sit on the bench? I mean, it is. I do think Unai should have just been quicker to throw Elliott in. Not necessarily sure why he waited so long to do it, but if Elliott doesn't start against either Bologna or Fulham, then I'll really start to be thinking, like, why are we waiting here? Michael Gillespie, bring Rory Wilson into the first team squad now. I actually have a working theory that Rory Wilson doesn't exist. He's a fake PSR chip that we're going to sell for 10 million one day to somebody, and then he'll never turn up. I'm like, where's the 10 million? Just because I've never seen him in, like the all-conquering U teams of last season, or the Premier League reserve teams, Premier League 2. I feel like I never see the guy.
Get him on your podcast, Frankie. There's your chance.
Yeah, mate, turns out he's an AI or something like that. Andy Mack, whatever this style of play is like rubbing sand in your eyes. If it was successful, that would be partly acceptable, but it isn't. It's not massively fun to watch right now, is it? We are being quite cautious.
Yeah. You see the nail on the head. Yeah, it's lovely. Yeah, it is tough to watch.
Marine Boy Villa seemed set up not to lose a game. It's kind of the way it goes for the first game of the season when we have McGinn and right wing and Tielemans in the number 10 and Arna Kamara, the two as a midfield pivot. It was, it looked defensive. Dr. A.R. Lee, by far my favourite Villa channel. See, Webbo, that's the influence you have.
I didn't know you were typing comments in the background under a different pseudonym, Frankie, just to give yourself some big ups for in the show.
Yeah, all of these are my pseudonyms, and none of them actually exist. But thank you, Dr. A.R. Lee. I can see why you got a doctorate. You're a very intelligent person to think like that. Marine Boy, we haven't won in the last 7, so what's going to change? Yeah, you sort of forget now. So it is, if you're thinking to last season as well, it is starting to.
Well, I think if you, and I'm trying to be positive and look at it, because if I don't, then it becomes incredibly depressive being a Villa fan at this period in time. So usually when a team breaks a rut, it's on the back of a couple of draws and then they find a way to win. Like I said, it's very rare that a team goes through a rut and then you instantly start playing brilliant football. So we've had our boring draws. It was technically away at Brentford in the Cup. Obviously, we lost on penalties, but away at Everton, away at Sunderland. So we've become hard to beat. Now on Thursday night, we've got that foundation, and it'll just be a way of grinding out a victory. But it won't change overnight in the sense of we're not going to start playing amazing football. It will just be finding a way to win, hopefully, our next game, and then the confidence will grow. And that's when you'll see the change kick in. Yeah,
completely. Steve says, Frankie, put your boots on and help. Well, if you saw me puffing and wheezing over the weekend for the London Lions, you'd withdraw that comment, I think. And somebody called Nearsighted Romance, who seems to have it in for me for some reason. This guy and Happy Clapping. Happy Clapping. I don't know what we've just heard for the last half an hour. It's Happy Clapping. But it is what it is. So that's the comments. But thank you, everybody, for watching. And thank you so much, Webbo, for coming on. Have you got any final thought you want to leave us with?
It's going to get better, Frankie. This time next month, we'll be on a high.
Yeah, it's like when Dareem wrote that song and New Labour played it in 1997. Things can only get better, surely. But no, okay. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I'll be your host, Frankie Maguire, and catch you later. Webbo, thank you so much for coming on.
Up the Villa. See you soon, Frankie.
And that's it from me. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Please like, please subscribe, please comment, and we'll get back to it. Up the mighty Villa.